Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 19 of the Aviation Spotters podcast. I am your host, Colin Moser. Real quick, guys, enjoyed last week's episode with Peter and Isaiah and that very unique two-guest episode. They are truly two of my really good friends when I go down to Vegas, and I can't thank them enough for their time and also helping me out with Vegas spotting and that good stuff. And you know what? If you guys like that two-person format, let me know. Give me some feedback, and we might try and make that happen again. I have a couple ideas planned for a two-person, even a three-person podcast. So, if you guys are interested, if that interests you, please let me know, and we'll make something like that happen again. Anyway, on to this week's episode, and we have been trying to get times where we can record this episode for a very long time. My guest today is a day one listener and a very big supporter of the podcast, and he actually has given me a lot of feedback. And actually, he actually supplied me with a couple of questions that I actually added early on in the podcast. So he was born in Switzerland, moved all around North America and Canada and across the United States, and eventually ended up in Seattle in 2006. So it was my pleasure to introduce my friend from Seattle, Washington, Mr. Pete Schneider. Peter, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, I'm doing great. It's a sort of beautiful day here in Idaho. Too early to tell with the weather right now, but hopefully the sun holds out for a bit.
Excellent.
Awesome, man. Well, let's, you know what? Thanks again for coming on. And I just want to say thank you for helping me out in the early days and actually supplying a couple questions. And when we get to those questions, I'll let the listener know which ones they are. But thank you for that real quick.
Oh, you're welcome. Pleasure to help out. And yes, I've been listening from the get-go. Love the show. So, I'm honored to be on here.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before we put you on here. Anyway, well, let's get to know you a little bit. So, where are you from and how you got into aviation? And, let's get to know you.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Switzerland. After the high school and stuff, eventually I studied mechanical engineering and then had a stint in the Swiss Army as it's mandatory there. And after that, I had set my sight to study film and television production. So via 7 months in Canada to learn some more English, I ended up in the States. First, I lived in the Midwest, where I went to a university for television production studies, and then moved on to Chicago, where I worked for a safety consulting firm doing instructional videos, like OSHA compliance stuff, and then eventually moved out to the Seattle area, where I live now, and my day job is shooting and editing training videos for firefighters. But on the hobby side, obviously, comes in the aviation side and the photography side, and love to take pictures of anything aircrafts. Have a big love for helicopters and a vertical flight. But to back up a bit about where the love for aviation comes from is my dad. In his younger years, he used to be a soaring glider pilot instructor. He even taught acrobatics, but he stopped flying once the family came along. But the love of aviation never faded. So he took us to every air show, to every airport for a little spotting, even like small grass strips. We always had to go look what's going on, where can we walk around. So that love for aviation was ingrained early on. Sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less. But so that's where this came from.
Awesome. And real quick, this for people that don't know, is you Swiss citizens have, or how's that work with the Swiss citizens? They have to do a certain amount of time in the military.
Right. That usually works that if you're a male and you're healthy, there is a mandatory military service. And when I did it, it used to be that you have to give, I think it's 360 service days you have to do. So you do like a basic training and a specialty training, that is about varies, I think, between 15 and 18 weeks. And then afterwards, depends of what you're doing for the Swiss military. You either go back every year for a refresher course for 2 weeks, or every 2 years for 3 weeks until you reach your service days. In my case, it was different because I asked for a leave of absence because I moved abroad. So they usually grant these absences. So eventually now I became too old, so I'm not interested to them anymore at this point.
Okay, cool. What was your specialty in the Swiss Army?
My specialty was I was in the air defense unit, and I was trained on Stingers.
Oh, cool! Like the shoulder-fired missiles, right?
Correct. So with me being into like the love for aviation, when we had to go to aircraft like an identifying class, is piece of cake for me. They showed us shapes of aircraft because all we had to learn is friend or foe. So other people struggled, and I had no issues with that, so that makes me kind of chuckle. So,
and also, this is during the Cold War still, right? So you were still going after the Soviet aircraft, right?
No. I mean, we definitely learned Soviet aircrafts, but I did my stint in the Swiss Army. That was in the summer of 1996. Yes.
Oh, so like 5 years after the fall of the USSR.
Right.
Okay, all right. Well, cool. So hopefully, a lot of people learn something new. And let's talk about the glider stuff real quick. We talked in the pre-show about you now have your private pilot's license, but have you ever done any sort of gliding at all?
No, this is actually a bucket list item. I never had the chance to go fly with my dad because he stopped flying when the family came along because he just felt it was too risky to do with having a family. So, but I have, it's way on top of my list. I want to go at least to fly once in a glider, and there's several glider outfits in the Seattle area, and usually every year when COVID's not going on and we go to this local GA aviation show in Puyallup, Washington, which would actually happen I think this weekend, which it's not happening, but they're always there exhibiting, and I talk to the folks there, and I grab a brochure, so it's really high on my list to at least experience that once.
And I know a lot of European countries are very big on gliding and stuff like that, especially like not just Switzerland, but like Italy and Germany and stuff like that, because with the Alps and stuff, right?
Right. I mean, gliding is very, it's very big in Switzerland, and it's also one of the more affordable ways to fly or, exercise a flying hobby, because anything GA related in Switzerland and in Europe in general is just so expensive. So that's why gliding is one of the lesser expensive of all these GA categories.
That's pretty cool. I knew the German World War II Luftwaffe, they used to train their pilots as glider pilots first and foremost, so they got the basics of flight.
Right.
And is that the same way with the Swiss Air Force, that they would train their pilots to learn how to fly gliders first, and then they go through the whole basic flying stuff?
Good question. I'm not sure. It might have been that way, like, in the early days, but definitely not these days. They all start with something small, like a Cessna or something like that, a motor or an aircraft with an engine, definitely.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's kind of do the other couple parts of this question. Is so you said you've been doing videography and photography for years now, but how long have you been doing it for aviation?
Okay, so the aviation photography side is the first air show I went to where I took pictures was in 1989 at the Sion Air Show in Switzerland. I borrowed my dad's, I can't remember if it was a Minolta or Konica point and shoot camera. I had enough money for 1 or 2 rolls of film, and my dad came home with a fax of the schedule of the air show. So I planned out, I knew how many shots I will have, so I planned out how many photos I would take of each aircraft I wanted to do. And since the Harrier is my favorite aircraft, I think it turned out to either 2 or 3 shots at the Harrier. So that still makes me laugh. But that's the first air show that I've taken photos, and I actually still have this album, and I look through it once in a while and I chuckle at the pictures. But hey, we all have to start somewhere. But the other thing that air showed it in me was the love for helicopters. There were 2 from the French Air Force, there were 2 Gazelle helicopters there, and they put on an amazing flight demo with loops and rolls. And not that I want to fly loops or rolls in a helicopter, but it sparked that idea in me that someday I want to learn to fly helicopters, which is a dream that I realized, like, I started flying 10 years ago and earned my private pilot's license by 2012. So it's just something I did on the side, and it's a hobby. Even today, don't fly often, but I do fly a handful of hours every year. So
just for currency and stuff like that.
Exactly. So
one last couple of questions before I move it on is, what do you consider your home airport?
Well, I would say my home airport is Boeing Field in Seattle, even though it's a little bit of distance away. But I think that just Boeing Field has, the most interesting aircrafts coming and going for spotting sakes. There are a couple small airports around me, near me here. Actually, in town, we have a seaport here that maybe sees 10 aircrafts a year. And then there's Bremerton National Airport, which I did part of my helicopter flight training, which is just pretty much strictly a GA. Has a couple private jets hangared there, but that's about as much there is. So, but for spotting, I definitely make the trip over to Boeing Field or SeaTac.
Cool. And one last question before moving on is, what other hobbies outside of aviation photography do you do?
What other hobbies do I have? So, hobby related, I love photography, not only aircraft photography, also like landscape photography, and I have almost 10-year-old twins, so I love to take pictures when they do their sports, or the girl does either dance or ballet or something, whatever gives me an opportunity to take pictures of the kids. Snowboarding, yes, I've done that as well, so I like to do that. I've been a dive instructor since 2005. I became a dive instructor, have actively taught till about 2015. Then I dialed it back a bit. I do dive occasionally. So, scuba diving, whatever kind of I can leave terra firma, whether it's going underwater or in the air.
Okay, cool. That's pretty awesome to do. I've never been diving before, but that's definitely on the bucket list.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, let's start getting into the aviation-specific stuff. So let's start out as, what type of camera do you have, and what have you used in the past?
What time? Okay, if I go way, way back, I think in kindergarten, I started with a pocket format 110 camera. I remember taking photos at the zoo. So, but then I had my first DSLR, which I got was 16. It was a Canon film SLR. Eventually I switched over into the Nikon camp, had another Nikon SLR, and my first DSLR was a Nikon D40X, which I bought as a kit with 2 lenses. I think had a 1855, 55-200, and I remember one of the years I went to Oshkosh, I brought that and grabbed a couple nice photos of. My main reason I went there was for the air crane. Ericsson air crane did a demo there with water drops, so that was my main target there. I brought home a few good pictures, so that's where I started out with my DSLRs. Eventually upgraded, then I went to a Nikon D5100. From that, I went to a Nikon D5300, which is these days actually I use it as my backup camera, and now I'm shooting with a Nikon D7500. That's quite a larger buffer than all my other cameras. It's like either 8 to 10 frames a second. So, and yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with the D7500. And I've, as far as lenses go, my main airshow lens is I bought a Sigma 150 to 600 contemporary, which actually has served me so far very well. I've been pretty happy with it. I just recently bought also a 100 to 400 Sigma lens, just in case I don't need quite that reach, especially with the crop factor I already have. So, and it's the 100-400 is also a good bit lighter, because I can feel it in my arms after a day of air shows. The 150 to 600 does get somewhat heavy. Other lenses I have this Sigma 18 to 300. That's more of a travel lens. If I don't want to carry a lot, but kind of want a range, good range. So that's what I bring along. But that's not so much for spotting. I have some couple Nikon lenses, 10 to 20 millimeter for if I need some super wide angle. What else do I have? I think there's a let me think, 18-140 I think is another Nikon lens that I have, sort of a little bit of an all-around lens. And it's nice to have, two cameras handy, like especially at air shows. So if something's flying going on, I need the long range, and then at the end when they taxi by in front, so that I don't have to switch lenses, I can just pick up the other camera with a wider angle lens on there and get those shots.
That's the same thing that I do. I have my old Pentax K30 with the 18 to 55 ready to go with my Canon 5D with the 100 to 400. So if I need to make a quick swap, don't have to worry about changing lenses. So that's always a good thing to have. But man, that's a lot of gear used in the past, and that's pretty cool that you had the experience of shooting with like film and stuff like that, and SLRs, and it's always a lot of people. They used to start out shooting DSLRs, like a lot of the older generation now. I mean to sound kind of like that, but what I mean is like learning how to shoot film and stuff, like actually using actual like light meters and stuff like that. Like it's kind of a lost art and stuff like that.
Right. And my dad, he was also big into photography, and we even had at home a complete darkroom outfit. So we used to shoot black and white. We would develop the film ourselves, and then we would make prints ourselves. So I did this at home. I did this at school. I've even taken once in my teenage years a photography camp. There we actually shot more color slides. But yeah, I did all sorts of photography things. So, but there's good times though. Great memories.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really awesome. All right, well let's now that we know your cameras and all that, let's move it on to let's talk about the airports, airplanes, and all that good stuff. All right, so what is your favorite airport to go and take photos at?
Favorite airport? So as I mentioned earlier, I like to go to Boeing Field. I think there's always a good variety coming and going, sometimes more, sometimes less. I also like to, stop by Renton Airport, where Boeing's 737 MAX factory is at, and see what sort of new MAXes they have pushed out from the factory. So I always like to go look around there. And I also like, commercial aviation, but not as much. For me, I really like military aircrafts. But yeah, so between Boeing Field, SeaTac, Renton, so that's where I do my rounds.
What's your favorite aircraft you've ever taken a photo of at BFI?
I would almost say, this is what comes on top of my head, Boeing 777X on the day of the first flight, which happened last year. They got skunked the first 2 days because of weather. And then the third try was the Charm, which happened to be a Saturday, and I was able to make it over there. So started out at Payne Field to watch the takeoff, and then went down to Boeing Field to watch the arrival, and we were up on the hill and got some couple nice shots with the 777X and the chase plane and the big Boeing hangar in the background. So it kind of all brought it together with a nice background, or an appropriate background, I probably should say.
Yeah, 777X is always fun to go take photos of up there. But was it like a gargantuan convoy as soon as that airplane took off from Payne? Like everybody got in their cars and started going down south?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I'm sure there was a fair amount of people. There were obviously lots of Boeing employees there, and I'm sure the majority of them did not go to Boeing Field. They were just more interested in seeing, their hard work finally taking off. And the whole media, whoever had media credentials, Boeing bussed them down to Boeing Field, and that day I did not have media credentials, so I drove myself out, and I wasn't stuck in traffic, so there was not really an issue.
Cool. I know that the 787 it was that way. Those are gargantuan as the line of traffic and never panned down to Boeing in 2009.
Right. I can imagine that.
So we know that now that BFI is your favorite airport to go spot at. What is your favorite? So it's kind of a two-part question. What is your favorite airplane to spot, and what is your favorite aircraft of all time?
Yeah, I agree. It's a two-part question. I really like to take pictures of helicopters, and I like to do panning shots to get a nice, decent rotor blur. So whenever I have an opportunity, whether it's at BFI or somewhere else, I really like taking helicopter pictures. As far as favorite aircraft, and it's also what the love of aviation, it has to be the Harrier. Because as a kid, I loved the Harrier. It's the aspect of vertical flight and the hovering, and that sort of brings me back again to helicopters and hovering. So, and to this day, I still enjoy seeing the Harrier at air shows, which the Marines still fly them. So. And in Europe, I think it's Spain. Spain, I think Italy retired it. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's about Spain that's left over. So, and they do make once in a while an appearance on some air show. So, but the one aircraft I have not seen is the F-35. I don't know. Is it the A model that can?
The B model, the Marine model. The B model.
Yes, I have not seen that yet. So I hope someday. My path will cross with the F-35B model and see that at a demo.
It's extremely impressive to see that aircraft doing its high speed passes and it's close to supersonic as they can get, and then it also just slow down, open the top hatch up, and to start going to hover flight. It is extremely amazing to see.
Yes, I can imagine. I mean, I have seen the A model plenty of times at Nellis and other air shows, but not come across the B model yet.
I will say this with the F-35, the C model is my favorite with that bigger wing. Hands down, definitely the C model is my favorite variant of the F-35. So Harrier as the favorite aircraft of all time, and helicopters in general as your favorites. Just now, actually, aircrafts to spot, I should say. Got to make that plural.
Right.
So what is your favorite helicopter of all time then?
Favorite helicopter from a form factor, I would say it has to be the French Gazelle. That just was made by, I think, Aerospatiale, which then eventually became Eurocopter and now is Airbus. So obviously they no longer make that, but there's still several around also in the States that are flown. And it just has such a sleek form factor. It was also extremely fast. And so, yeah, that's, I would say, from the looks, one of my favorite helicopters. I've had the chance to once fly in a Super Puma from the Swiss Air Force. That was also a neat experience. And so another very interesting helicopter, which I've not seen flying, but I've seen it exhibited at the Central Air Force Museum in Moscow, in Monino, is the Milmi 12. It's a two-rotor helicopter. It's just this giant behemoth. It's just there in static exhibit, but it was nevertheless fascinating to see the size of it. It's just gigantic.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, it's like a prototype with like literally multiple of what are they, the Mi-12 helicopters, like those on like pylons, like a central just like cab, right?
Right. It looks like it has a fuselage of an airplane, and then it has like these two little stubby wings, and then outside are these two rotors. It's almost like a Chinook, but instead of the rotors having front and back, it's just side to side.
It's the Soviets came up with some very unique aircraft design, and what's even better is they actually flew a lot of these.
Yes, indeed.
And that's why I love Soviet designed aircraft. It's just they're just so unique, and it's like they're pushing the boundaries of aerospace engineering and stuff like that. But
Exactly, and that's why the Central Air Force Museum in Monino houses a lot of these like prototypes and stuff they have tested in all those years. Whoever finds themselves in Russia, I can highly recommend to go visit that museum and see all the stuff that's standing around there. Incredibly fascinating and interesting.
yeah, that's on the bucket list for sure. And we'll talk about. I think we'll mention Marks here in a bit. I know, and we'll talk about that more in detail in a bit. Do you have a least favorite aircraft to take photos of?
Least favorite aircraft, I would have to kind of put this into category. It's kind of like acrobatics. It doesn't do a whole lot for me, and I know it. I mean, these are all incredibly skilled, experienced aviators, but for some reason acrobatics, it doesn't do a whole lot for me. And it's even kind of with the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. It's a fantastic display. I have seen it numerous times, but it's just it doesn't do a whole lot for me.
Okay. Yeah, it's once you see the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels, you've seen it once, you've seen it a lot. It might be a little different though this year with the Blue Angels because as they're transitioned from the Legacy Hornet to the Super Hornet.
Right. I agree.
That's going to be a little bit different. When apparently they're going to do some different different design techniques, or not design, but different acrobatic stuff that's more capable of the Super Hornet. So a little bit different thing to look forward to now.
Right, I agree, and I'm looking forward to see them again. I think they're scheduled for Seafair. Whether it happens or not, we will see.
We will see.
Exactly.
Hopefully I will make it up there for that, because that's about the closest I'll be able to see the Blues this year, coming from Boise. And because our Gowan Thunder Air Show got canceled, like one of the first air shows to be canceled, which sucked. But I mean, I honestly didn't have high hopes for the show anyway. So
right.
All right, so least favorite, just acrobatic stuff, which is actually kind of weird. If you think about it, if like a lot of like these pilots that fought acrobatic stuff, not just the Thunderbirds and stuff like that, but a lot of the piston-driven stuff. That's what gets a lot of people into the aviation stuff. So that's actually really interesting.
That's true. Even like when I go to air shows, even if it's just a single prop plane doing acrobatics, I don't know why. It's not my thing. And I know it takes a lot of skill, a lot of practice. It's incredible what they can accomplish to defy gravity and whatever else they do. But it doesn't do a whole lot for me. So
yeah, no, I agree. It's like when I go to air shows, I'm not really interested in taking the photos of the acrobatic guys unless they do like something special or there's a backdrop to it.
Sure, yeah, I agree.
I mean, I could do it to test out some settings, try and get some more prop blur and stuff like that, but otherwise it's not my cup of tea.
Sure, I agree.
So kind of moving it on to the next question is, what is the rarest aircraft you've ever taken a photo of? Or in this case, seen? Because we talked about this earlier.
Yes. So I had to think quite long and hard about it. I actually have seen a lot of rare aircrafts at Monino, Central Air Force Museum in Russia. There's probably too many to count. But the one I actually have seen flying, and this happened all unintentional. I was at a public pool in Switzerland, and that happened either the late 80s or the early 90s. And there was this like unusual sound in the sky. Didn't really know what it was. Did not sound like anything else. We looked up, and what flew overhead was the Concorde. And they usually did not fly over Switzerland. I think had to do with either noise issues or noise abatement issues or something like that. But yes, there was the Concorde flying overhead, going from somewhere to somewhere else. So I would say that was one of the rarest that I've seen in flight.
That's pretty cool. Have you ever had the chance to fly on a Concorde?
I have not. I did go in... What was it? Concorde used to come to Oshkosh on a yearly basis. And what year did the crash occur in Paris? Was that 2000 or 2001?
2000, I believe.
Yes. And I had just moved to Illinois from Michigan, and my brother flew in from New York, and we were going up to Oshkosh, and our goal was to see the Concorde, but because the accident had happened, and I say maybe a week or two before Oshkosh happened, they ended up canceling because they grounded all Concordes, and so that was the sort of the closest of actually having it seen flying close up. So, but unfortunately, it did not happen. So
that's too bad.
Yes.
Yeah, it was in July of 2000.
Yeah, I see.
When the crash happened.
Yeah, and then usually Oshkosh happens later that month in July.
Dang. Well, that's the rarest aircraft you've ever, you've seen or whatnot. But what's the rarest aircraft you actually have a photo of?
Rarest aircraft I have. Tupolev 144. That was exhibited at MAX. That was interesting to see, and there I got to go inside. Obviously, it's not flying, but got to go in the cockpit and look around, front to back. Also interesting was seeing the Sukhoi 47. That was also exhibited static, just with that where the wings are pointed forward. Interesting design.
The Bearcoot, right?
I think so. And then, but to me, I wouldn't say it's rare, but maybe it's rare for Americans but the Sukhoi 57 now, that demo that was flown by Sergei Bogdan, that was just absolutely mind-boggling what they can do with that aircraft. So that was probably my own personal rarest aircraft that I had seen.
That the Su-57 Felon, or it could have been the T-50 that you also seen, or whatever. There's so many different variants of this aircraft now, but I honestly think that's a very beautiful aircraft.
It is. Looks stunning.
It really is. But, I know we're kind of on the same question as we had talked about with the listener before we kind of started is, the question that's kind of next. So, like, the favorite event and/or location, and you were the one that actually asked me or kind of told me about, hey, you should do a question like this. So it is thanks to you that we have this question. So before we talk about that, I think I already know what your favorite location is outside. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. But let's talk about marks, because you and another really good mutual friend of mine did marks. So what is the process? Well, let's say, like, what is marks? And for someone like me as a United States citizen or whatever, how do we go to this show in Russia?
Okay, these are good questions. So the MAX Air Show is Russia's largest aviation event or air show that happens once every 2 years. It was in 2017, then it was again in 2019, and supposedly happening again this year. So that's where kind of they bring military aviation, they bring Russian space, they bring commercial aviation. It's all shown there. There are foreign participants there. Even Boeing had a rather smallish booth there. So the show happens in Zhukovsky, which is about an hour outside of Moscow. It's very easy to reach by train from Moscow, and then they bus the participants onto that airfield. So that the getting there is the easy part. You just, you fly to Moscow, take the train, or some people even prefer to stay out there. The little bit of a harder part is, as American citizens or citizens from other countries, you need a visa. You can do this on a regular, tourist visa. The process of getting the Russian tourist visa is sort of, I would say, a bit antiquated. You need to get like an invitation letter, and there are outfits who provide these invitation letters. You pay a few dollars, and then you have to fill out the form from the Russian government for the tourist visa. That takes about an hour. They want to also know about your travel history from the last 10 years. So, but after 30 line items, it won't take any more. Yes, and then you can't really submit it directly to the Russian embassy. They have these like sub-agencies that handle that. So you have to turn in your passport and your forms and your photos to the sub-agency, and obviously everybody wants some money for their services. So it costs about around $300 to get the tourist visa. So that's why I encourage everybody, since they offer the 3-year tourist visa, get the 3-year tourist visa. Make sure your passport is valid long enough. So, because who knows, maybe once you go to MOX, you may want to go again to MOX 2 years later. So at least you can, utilize your tourist visa for a second time. And of course, there's plenty other things to see in Russia besides MOX that are worthwhile traveling there. But so get the most for your money and effort, since it takes quite the effort, but it's doable. It's definitely doable.
Yeah, that's definitely on a bucket list item for me. And my degree is in international relations with a Russia emphasis and all that. So I would love to visit Russia one day and go to that air park and the museums and stuff like that, and see all those Soviet-built aircraft that I think are really cool. Growing up in the United States, I don't think I have seen a flying Russian aircraft. No way they have. A couple of years ago, the Open Skies Tu-154 flew over Boise, and I saw the contrail of it.
Excellent.
But I don't think I've seen a flying Russian-built aircraft. I've seen the MiG-15.
Okay.
MiG-15 and the MiG-17s that air shows and stuff like that. But otherwise, I think that's probably it. I've seen an Antonov. There used to be an Antonov AN2 that used to be based in Caldwell, which is a smaller airport in the valley. And I remember one of the air shows out there's an AN2 sitting out there. That was pretty cool.
Yes, those are fascinating aircrafts. I got to go into one at MOX, and on the same trip, I was in Switzerland first, and I saw one at our local airfield back home. There are maybe 2 or 3 in Switzerland that are run by like historic groups, and they sell flights, like scenic flight seats. It's about $100, and they take you up for 45 minutes to an hour. And that's also something I want to do sometime. Would love to fly an Antonov too. That's it has like no stalls or no published stall speed or something like that. It's fantastic.
It's the Russian DC-3 that will go on forever.
Right, exactly.
That aircraft will never ever retire, just like the DC-3.
Right. Yeah, it's incredible, and even seeing it fly, it looks beautiful in the sky.
It really is. It really is a very beautiful aircraft, and it's very versatile. It has a high wing. It's pretty much a biplane, but it's just so versatile. And I believe some the Russian special forces are still using it today.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's now that we talked about Max, guys, Max, not Marks, Max. I apologize. Let's talk about your question specifically. What is your favorite event or location outside? So I'm going to let you take this one away.
Okay.
Let's talk about AvSP and.
Right, so good old AvSP Air Show in Switzerland, which is a live fire training. So I'm going to back up here a little bit to the beginnings of that.
Absolutely.
As a kid, my mother used to take us to once a year. The Swiss Army had this weapons demonstration, what they do, which was kind of the predecessor to the AvSP show. And that was in a town of Thun, which is right next to where I grew up, and they have a big tank training field where they drive around and have mud pits, and they would also fire their tank cannons, and there's this big hill where they used as a target hill. So once a year they had a weapons demonstration where the public was invited. They shot tanks, they had artillery there, and they would also come with the Hawker Hunter or the Havilland vampires they had, and the Venoms. And they would shoot their guns, and had free fall bombs, and also at the end of the demonstration they would always drop napalm, which is really incredible to see. But as the years went on, there's more and more, the area became more and more populated, and they couldn't do that anymore. So that's what became of the AvSP live fire training, which is kind of above the town of Brienz in Switzerland in the Swiss Alps. And AvSP is this little valley, which is a military shooting training area for fighter jets. So once a year, it's usually in the second week of October, the public's invited to this live fire training event. The event itself is not really advertised as an air show. It's a live fire exercise where they have areas for spectators to come attend. It's free to attend, but what one ends up paying is the actual getting there. So first you have to make to the village of AvSP, which is in the Alps, and to get there it's a one-way road up the hill. So in order that there is no chaos with people driving up and driving down at the same time, they close that road every day from 5 in the morning till about 8 at night or so. And there's the local bus company that runs a very unique, intricate bus system where they have two-way traffic with buses on this one-way road, and all the drivers are in constant communication with each other, and everybody knows where the other buses are in order to avoid chaos. They have turnouts and they wait for each other and pass, and it works flawless. They have been doing this for years. So I usually go about at 8 in the morning to be at the park and ride. They have these big fields they mark off for parking, and because also at 8 in the morning is where they make a preliminary no-go decision. So in case the event gets cancelled, you just can go back in a car and go home. But once you buy a bus ticket, then you spend money, and you start heading up the hill. Once you get to the town of AvSP, you can take a chairlift, which gets you further up into the mountains. That helps about shave an hour of walking off uphill. And then from there, I would say a fit person, it would take about an hour and a half to get to the spectator areas. Takes me a little longer, but I like to start out in the morning early, be there by 8, get on the bus, and then you have all morning to hike up. There's no rush. There's one section that's rather steep, but the cool thing is that the Swiss Air Force already runs practice drills in the morning. So while you're hiking up, they're already flying and shooting overhead. And then the actual demonstration starts at 2 o'clock sharp. And it runs usually for about an hour and a half. And it culminates with the Poterie Suisse, flying their F-5s, their acrobatic routines. But in between and in the past years, you would get obviously they do the shooting demonstrations first. They had the F-18, they have the Legacy Hornets. They're still flying. They used to do also with the F-5s, but they will no longer use the F-5s for the Exalp event, maybe due to its age. And the Swiss Air Force also then demonstrates usually their PC-21, which is their turboprop trainer, which they use for the pilot training. That's also a pretty incredible display. And then you get the Super Puma / Cougar display, and they do this signature flare kick out. Ends up looking like a Christmas tree. They also do some bucket water drops with the Super Pumas. Then they have the F-18 single ship demo. They do. That's always incredible. And since it's in this valley, I mean, the scenery is just absolutely stunning with its mountain backdrop, and sometimes it can have snow, and sometimes it's almost summer. But because it's it's like, early to mid-October, weather is such a big factor that, I mean, the first 2 times I've tried to go to the show, it had been canceled. The first time I went, I made it to the top of the chairlift, turned right back around because it was canceled, went down. The following year, I actually made it to the top, and there was a cloud sitting on that little valley, and they literally canceled the event 5 minutes before it started because that cloud, me being in fog there, it just would not budge. They flew around it. We heard it. They flew around with the helicopters and jets. It just did not budge, and they had to cancel it. And we hiked back down, and we hiked out, and it was just unfortunate. Then the following year, there was about a week or 2 before Exalp, they had a helicopter accident in the Swiss Air Force. Not at Exalp, that was unrelated, but they sort of held a stand down and they canceled the event. But then finally in 2017, it was just blue skies, sunny, snow-capped mountains. It's just incredible to see that. So, and you're also really close, I mean, compared. And also the closest target is maybe 100 yards away. So super impressive to see, and probably one of only I don't know of many other events where you can see actual live fire training and be so close to the action activity.
Yeah, that's a pretty incredible location and a thing to do. I mean, I would love to see like a live fire air show like the A-10 or something like that.
Exactly.
But that's really cool. I know like they do like a lot of flare pops and stuff like that. You see a lot of those epic photos and stuff from up there, and that always is a bucket list item. But that's really cool that they do that for like, hey, come on out, we'll shoot some live fire and stuff like that. And it's just like, that's pretty cool.
It is actually, I mean, it's sort of, once you go there once and you get to see it, you just want to go again. Because even though it's only like the actual event is an hour and a half, but there are 3 spectator areas, and every area kind of gives you sort of like a different like vantage point. One is a little lower, and then there's like this main area, and then one is further up where there's this little control tower where they control what happens. So it's absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
And I can recommend it. Hopefully you can join the fun some year and come along.
I would love to come along one year and join that for sure. Obviously, right now Americans aren't really allowed in Europe right now, unfortunately. But
Yes,
hopefully
I
that'll.
exactly. Let's hope this, we'll get through this pandemic and we can resume somewhat normally and also have more air shows. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I agree. So, Axel, favorite location. You have a lot of great stories from there. Do you have another one that you want to tell the listener out there? Another spotting story or anything like that?
Another great spotting story or spotting place, which ties in with the Axel live fire training, is to go hang out at the Meiringen Air Base, and that's down in the valley, not too far from Axel, and that's where the aircraft, or most of the aircrafts, launch for the Axel live fire runs they do. And the airbase there, you can get actually fairly close to the aircrafts and the runway. Actually, crazy to think is that there is a road going across the runway, because it's got get to one side of the town to the other side of the town, because this is in a valley. So when a jet is about to take off, they close the road, so then it becomes a full runway, and then the jets or the helicopters take off, and then the road opens back up. And you even can walk across there. Super crazy. So, but they have these old, sort of grass-covered hangars, and you can walk around or walk along the runway. There's about a chest-high fence there that you can pretty much stand where you like and take pictures of the F-18s. And they usually also, they hangar those F-18s in caverns, and you can see them taxiing out the caverns. They taxi across the field. Obviously they have their paved taxiway, but it's in between fields of cows grazing grass, and cows could care less of those jets taxiing by. They close the road, they taxi across the road into the airbase, and then they will go up to the active runway and take off. So there's so many spots you can stand and be literally 20, 30 feet next to the F-18 taxiing by. And then there's also a lot of VIP helicopter traffic. There's about 600 lucky people that land themselves an invite, just like media and politicians and other designated people that have the pleasure of flying up to Axel, which takes all of about 6 minutes. So there's a lot of Super Puma helicopter traffic. So if somebody wants to practice panning for good rotor blur, that's a great place to do it. There's one after the other for about an hour plus, just coming by every couple minutes. So super interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Definitely another good location, stuff like that. But man, getting some cows with some hornets, the cows not giving a crap, that's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
That's pretty awesome. I wish there were people like that too. Just don't give a crap either. But unfortunately, people do give a crap. Well, anyway, man, let's start kind of wrapping her up, dude. Do you have any tips, words of encouragement out there for the listener?
I just, as everybody else says, go out there, take pictures, practice. I think if somebody wants to get into spotting or whatever, one does really not need the most expensive camera gear, because in the end, it's the photographer that takes the picture or takes the good picture. Even if somebody goes out there and they purchase a Christmas, all the manufacturers have these deals on kit cameras that come with a wide angle and a longer range zoom. That's a great way to start. And even with what the cameras can do these days, and even with lower end DSLRs, one can actually take really great pictures, and that's a really great way to spotting. And just go out there, have fun, take pictures, practice, talk to other spotters. I think we're pretty much a friendly bunch, and we're happy to help and give pointers and help out and share stories. And yeah, just go try it. Go to air shows, meet like-minded folks, and before you know it, you land some really cool shots. So
absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more right there. Be social, learn, never always ask questions, and try to keep learning.
Absolutely,
it'll pay off in the end.
Exactly.
So hey man, where can the listener find you and find your work?
Okay, so the best way to find my work is, I would say, at Instagram. I used to post on Facebook, but Facebook I usually keep these days for friends and family. And people ask me, where is your work? I started Twitter. I don't post much on Twitter. And then I thought, okay, I could bite the bullet, open up Instagram. So I've been sort of kind of going through my archives, re-editing photos, but definitely Instagram is the best place to find it. My handle is @Swiss Schneider. And I just keep growing. I try to post a few pictures every week, and it's just aviation. And I just post whatever I find from the past that I really like and enjoy, and re-edit some pictures which I enjoy very much and put it up there. And check it out, @Swiss Schneider.
Awesome. And guys, go give him a follow. You will not be disappointed in what you see. You will see stuff from AvSP, you'll see stuff from Max, you'll see stuff from BFI, the whole 9 yards. You're going to see it on there, and trust me, you will not be disappointed with the content and quality of Pete's photos. And I just want to say again, Pete, thank you again for coming on the show. I really, really do appreciate it, and all your help that you have given me.
Oh, thanks for having me again. I'm honored I could come on, and love the show, and love to help out and give input, and looking forward to upcoming episodes and who else you have planned.
Yeah, we have a good slew of guests lined up, and you know what? Speaking of that, make sure you guys, I'm going to do something special for you guys. I'm going to do 3 episodes in March, and I have enough people to do that. So just for March, we'll see how it goes. But this next guest, I said Kadar's was my biggest guest, and Kadar, being an extremely humble man that he is, this next guest on March 3rd is, let's just say you have all seen his photos, and there's a very special Southwest story that he took with a retiring captain from a helicopter. I'll let you guys think about that on who it's going to be, but before we wrap up for good, if you guys have any questions, comments for the show, reach out to me, BOI Spotter, on Twitter and Instagram. Send me an email, askspotterspodcast@gmail.com. Check out the Facebook page, and check out the YouTube page, guys. YouTube is up and running. All current episodes are up there. Pete's episode should be up there. If you know somebody who you think deserves to come on the show and talk aviation with me, and they don't have the necessary means like a Spotify or Apple Podcast or Google Podcast or whatever, point them towards the YouTube page. Great tool to help get the podcast out there. So anyway, guys, please go check that out, and please use the hashtags, #AvSpottersPod and #AviationSpottersPodcast. That helps me find a lot of stuff on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and get those guys on the show. Before we close it out here, Peter, any last things before we close her out?
No, that's it. I had a great time. Thank you for having me on, and go out there, take pictures.
Yeah, go out there, take some photos, guys. Do it safely, though, right now. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's not screw it up. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me here on another episode of the Aviation Spotters Podcast. And as always, keep those batteries charged and those cameras ready. And we'll catch you on another episode of the Aviation Spotters Podcast.